Welcome to America, where straight men deep throat foot-long hot dogs.
Welcome, ladies.
Wrong holiday. Sorry. I just had to do the turkey call.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another amazing episode of the Mid-Heaven Podcast. This is Mr. Chocolate Smooth Godiva, your favorite Hermes representative, with your favorite Hades representative. I don't think there's a combo like this on the internet at all. But yes.
Not on the internet, but we're like the next best thing to like an Oreo.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. An Oreo and an Oreo. You got Tupac out here. There you go.
I mean,
Aries moon.
You gotta do what you gotta do. I love me some Tupac. Well, it is
Happy Independence Day.
Yeah, 4th of July. Happy early 4th of July. I feel like we should have like beers and hot dogs in our hands.
Oh, hot dogs are really good. Glizzies.
What's that?
Apparently, it's tough to be a man and eat hot dogs in public, but they're really good.
What?
A glizzy, putting a phallic, meaty substance in your mouth.
Do corn dogs count?
Yes.
What about popsicles?
Yes.
You won't eat a popsicle in public?
I mean, I'll look left and right before I put it in my mouth. Oh yeah. I don't want to see someone putting a stick in my mouth.
I have no shame.
I'll
like double fist hot dogs in public. Hot dogs are like.
I don't want to be just
like
deep throat. I don't want to deep throat a popsicle in public.
Little Gluck Gluck 9000.
You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. Like, I would be very cautious.
I would just put you on the corner and make some money. Honestly,
or I just kind of like snip it and then eat it. Snip it, and then, you know what I'm saying? So it is what it is.
So you like the cocktail wieners? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm very secure in my sexuality.
Okay, then let me ask you a question. Are you gonna go with the regular or are you gonna go with the foot long?
The foot long.
Okay, that's how I know you're gay.
Whoa!
Like that's I love asking straight men that question.
What do you mean?
You said foot long. You're a size queen.
Oh. I mean, hold on. Oh, yeah. I walked right into that one.
Welcome to America, where straight men deep throat foot-long hot dogs.
Let me find out.
I feel a mukbang coming on.
The day I realized I was bi-curious.
That's the test. So you're going to tell me that you're going to get the regular size hot dog?
That was instinctual, too. I didn't hesitate.
It was the tourist in you.
What do you mean? Yeah, it was. Oh, well.
I mean, if you break it up, nobody really knows how much you ate. So there's that, right? That's the beauty of like eating hors d'oeuvres and things that are like smaller. Nobody needs to know you had like 8 mini corn dogs, right?
Oh my God.
I'm the same way with like pizza bagels and stuff. I'll be like, it's not bad. It's a mini pizza, and I ate like 12 of them.
I just see. I don't know why I'm just imagining Lucas just commenting something on the live. Shout out to you, bro. Yes.
Oh boy. Well. Because it's America's birthday, we are going to be talking to you all about the solar return chart for 2022. So we're going to take a look at America's birthday chart. We're going to cast the chart for, technically the birthday is actually going to be on July 5th in the early hours. We're going off the Sibley chart. So the sun returns, the solar return is the birthday. Sometimes it's the day before, sometimes it's the day after. So in this case, America's birthday is actually July 5th, 2022 at 4:24 a.m. in Washington, D.C.
The significance, of course, is that this is America's first birthday since the Pluto return post-apocalypse. Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah, and Pluto's also like retrograding back in the midst of all this, and it's doing its thing. We're definitely seeing America's Pluto return in prime time. We have great seats with popcorn.
Yeah, and I think what's really awesome about this is we're basically like the people who, you remember when the Civil War happened and like there were people who brought their families out to watch it?
Like people who were still churning butter?
Right, who before they realized
riding horses?
Maybe we shouldn't watch war because this is probably not the right thing to do. Like I think that's where America is at right now. Like we're seeing it hit the fan. We don't yet know the significance of how iconic this is yet. And we're just watching everything we used to know just like crumble and be rebuilt in front of our faces. And that might sound negative, but I would say even in the face of all this like horrible shit, it's still like all amazing. It's all incredible.
Spoken like a true 8th house moon.
Yeah,
This
seriously.
is amazing.
I'm the type of dude that's burning around like, this is pretty cool. Like, seriously, it is what it is. So put my perspective with a grain of salt, but yeah.
So this will give us a little bit of insight as to like what's going to happen for the year ahead with the United States. Something else that we'll do is we will also, I like to compare, like when I do solar return readings, I'll put the solar return with the natal chart and like look to see if there's anything kind of showing up that's really significant. My eyes are getting really big because I know that America's Mars is conjunct the ascendant. America's natal Mars. It's somewhere between that Venus and yeah, so that's interesting. So
I remember 2017 when I became a believer in solar return charts. I did a webinar with Astrological, and she had mentioned that her technique is to use your birthplace, which you did for the chart too, instead of the actual like location you're at. So I've been wanting to experiment that. But 2017 was the year I became a believer, because before I was like, this is junk astrology. Like how is the planets where they were at, you know? And for me, it was 10th house, and that was the year my career changed. So that made me a believer. And you know, to see that this solar return is first, second house, this may be a financial makeover of the country where we finally succumb to the trillions of dollars in debt that the country is in, which means if you're Pluto Aquarius, Pluto Pisces, thankfully I feel like Saturn Capricorn will be all right. But like Saturn Aquarius, Saturn Pisces, Saturn Aries, the burden of the responsibility of like every country is on y'all. Like y'all are the ones that have to inherit. But Saturn Cap too, Saturn Sagittarius too, but we have our way about us. And you know, I don't think we're gonna have to really handle that as much as many of you in the 90s will. And I think this solar return is going to be a very somber solar return with Jupiter in near the MC or in the 10th house, 11th house, that will kind of simultaneously show everybody the good and bad news, the light and the dark. I think there's going to be a lot to celebrate while we kind of keep in mind, oh, this shit's hitting the fan.
Well, I see a reoccurring theme also. So we saw that, you know, we did Cancer season, then we did the summer solstice chart. Obviously, the sun was at 0 degrees of Cancer square Jupiter in Aries. Well, here we go. This is Gemini rising, Mercury on the ascendant, Mercury at 0 degrees of Cancer.
Mercury on the ascendant.
And it's square Jupiter in Aries. So we're seeing these repetitive patterns. Obviously, part of it's just because you've got planets going through Cancer, but with a square to Jupiter, the sun's in a square to Jupiter too. So that's interesting.
It's like a duality. It's like everything that you loved or knew about America is dead. But like, there's a new hope. That's where there's that duality. It's like shit's hitting the fan, but there's newness. There's a new direction, despite where... I'm sorry, I've seen this.
I don't know about this. This makes me a little iffy. Just also seeing how the ascendant and the descendant are flipping. I think it's bringing a lot of the things that America has done to others and has
that's real.
Done privately. It's like airing out all the dirty laundry. So now we have to kind of reconcile with some of the stuff that we've done, and it becomes much more public. It's not as private as it typically is, right?
Also, this being near the first, second house, it's asking you, like, who really is an American? What is the value of an American? What does it mean to be an American? I think we're going to revisit all of these themes where when this Constitution was established, the people who represented America are so much different than the people who represent it now. They
are, but it's very similar to when we saw the Revolutionary War as a result of taxation without representation, you know, the colonies being exploited, I mean, managing everything and like controlling everything and like really kind of driving some of the colonies like into the ground. I mean, there's some similar things going on now.
Everyone is a nigga. I just have to say that right now. Like, regardless of how charged that word or term is, right? Like, this is, I feel like, evening the playing field. It's reminding people that it really doesn't matter what color or race you are. Like,
No,
people,
capitalism has made everyone slaves.
exactly.
That's what's going on. Yeah,
like it's
we're slave to
everybody.
the system because
Right, a debt slave.
we've bought
to the
into
system.
it. We've
Right.
taken out the loans. We've charged up the credit cards. We've bought into the American dream that you have to have the biggest house, the nicest car, and you need to be so worried and consumed and concerned about not being the best. Like a lot of the roosters are coming home to roost.
Which, if you listen to Richard Branson, I don't know if it's Richard Branson. No, it's not Richard Branson. It was someone else. I think he's a Pisces, but he makes a lot of money. But he mentioned something about the reason why there was such a push to get homes is because in the 50s, the bankers needed to give out loans.
Yeah.
And so they had to convince people that the American dream, you need to buy a house.
They did this shit all over again in the mid-70s, trying to convince people to go to college and telling them that they needed to take out college degrees. And that's why, for the better part of the last 40 years, people have been slaving away, working jobs that are not progressing in terms of income, just to be able to pay their loans and their cost of living. So
I'm so glad you brought the 50s, because if we look at the 50s to the 70s, Uranus and Neptune were traveling from Cancer to Libra.
Yeah.
And now they're opposite. So like we're seeing the completion results and like consequences of this. Not that it's even bad, but just we're seeing the results of it.
Well, I mean, we're buying into the American dream, but we're not. What are we getting out of it? Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess I can go on and on about this, but...
And especially, and that question is really to the Pluto, Leo, Virgos, and Libras who feel disillusioned and scammed by their own country. You know what I'm saying? And government. And once again, this is regardless of color, race, like every color, race is feeling this, you know? So culture, ethnicity, and it's so ironic. Like we may see the sowed seed for revolution where Neptune goes back into Aries and Uranus and Gemini where the last civil war happened.
Yeah, I mean, also just America's, Uranus return happening, 2026, 2027? I mean, that's going to be the real
that's facts.
Shift. It's just, you're going to see a really intense power grab that's going to happen until Pluto fully moves into Aquarius. I think that what's most interesting is that you've got Mercury at that 0 degrees again. You've also got Mercury that's in an exact trine to the midheaven. So there's definitely some sense of people speaking out more, people talking more, people getting more emotional about what's going on in the world.
I see a redefinition of America. Like not genuinely too. I feel like narratives may be pushed to be like, this is what America looks like now. And that being like a huge pushback or blowback or at least point of narrative conversation. I want to be careful about how I say things because even and I love I love how you I feel like you're a lot more of a mature perspective to my Gemini, childlike perspective. So I was going to say more so a lot of things that look bad to us now may actually ultimately be really good just because of the friction that started. But we still want to acknowledge that it's not all positive, right? It's not something we can just take lightly.
I think that some of the positive points are also Saturn that's making a trine to the ascendant. I mean, I'm trying to find the good in some of the stuff that's going on in this chart. But a first house sun is going to have people focus so much on what they are doing personally. Their homes, their family, their needs, their bodies. I'm looking at Mercury, Lilith, and the sun all within the first house. I think it's going to definitely deal with anything in regards to individuals and control over their bodies and control over their homes, I mean... I'm
kind of worried. I'm not worried, but I feel troubled about this 12th house Uranus North Node. That's very volatile.
Well, and the ruler being Venus, and Venus is still kind of behind the scenes there as well. Yeah.
This year is going to bring a complete transformation in the way every American lives their life, does trade, and connects with each other.
What about that South Node?
That's the South Node Scorpio. It's the transformation of the behavior, lifestyle of every American. And that just looks like 9th house Gemini, hardcore new mandates and rules that trigger this transformation. And so there's going to be so much hidden in that 12th house Taurus.
Well, and by whole sign, Scorpio is 6 houses away. Excuse me, 8 houses away.
Oh.
So, no, yeah, 6
houses,
six
yeah.
houses away. So, bringing up the theme of like health and
Right.
occupational
That's
issues and releasing and letting go of stuff relating to the service industry.
Especially with like, you know, Pfizer CEOs speaking about compliance.
Yeah, compliance in the form of like they're trying to figure out how to give us a pill now.
Exactly. Like this could resurge a new breakthrough in alternative holistic healing methods. Not to compete with what's out, but to just offer new alternatives. Are we gonna see that suppressed? Are we gonna see that hidden?
What do you see with Saturn retrograde in the 9th?
Saturn retrograde in the
kind
9th.
of like a karmic reckoning when it comes
Right.
to law, legality, our relationship with the court system, and
We're definitely seeing something different. That's what's gonna trigger this change of how people behave around each other. It's almost like soft launching America 2.0 / New World Order. But take out the conspiracy elements of the New World Order and just think more 2030, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2021, or Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 sustainable development. We're going to start to see hardcore, heavy movement forced by the Jupiter square to push forward, you know, ideals and mandates that I feel majority of the country, most of which don't even agree with each other, will disagree with. Like this could be the one thing they agree on. And we may see a whole lot of, you know, a few people speaking for many, acting like everyone wants this, but that's far from the truth, you know? It doesn't have to be bad too, but these are just the deceptive mechanics you want to be careful of.
I'm a little weary of that.
I'm definitely skeptical.
That 0 degree Mars in Taurus.
It's my progressed Mars right now.
Well, it's slow and it's sluggish, you know? And there's a sextile to Mercury. So Mercury's making quite a few aspects, actually, when you really look at it. I mean, it's...
Getting ready for an epiphany with the
yeah.
Kazumi.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that either. Yeah, there's going to be another Kazemi in July at some point.
Is it going to be in Leo or in Cancer?
It's going to be in Cancer, I think.
At the end of Cancer. So that's a huge epiphany opposite Pluto. And that to me is revelation of what has been spun and hidden before it gets spun again. But, you know, in light of, we also have to keep in mind that this is like the final chapter of the 2020 reset. So this is coming into conclusion before 2023 of a new beginning. And I think everyone all over the world, especially in America, is going to gain insight about how to begin to see things coming into Virgo. So that's where, once again, I feel like we're going to accept what has happened since 2020, but that Jupiter in Aries is like a new light. It's like a new way forward that in the moment won't seem as powerful, but as this comes more at the end of Aries 2023, we'll start to see how this works.
That North Node Uranus, though, is quite... that's a little unnerving for me in the 12th house.
Right, in the 12th house. Yeah, it just feels really weird. It's like, what is being hidden?
Well, what's being hidden, I think, is there's going to be
plain
legislation that's being put through that is going to be... that we don't see coming, which may not hit until Aquarius through Taurus season next year.
Right.
And you got to think next year, you know, we're going to see Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction. So there's going to be major,
You're
it's like
right.
a big turning point financially. I mean, like a lot of the world market is based off the US dollar. So if the US dollar does something totally radical and goes, hey, we're going to go digital, or hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, it's going to affect everyone.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some
there was a civil war.
some really unexpected things I think that are going to be coming financially, but also things that are going on kind of like behind the scenes that's being hidden. I'm looking at Venus there too. I mean, I think that it's talking about the possibility of some kind of duality, right? So let me put the other chart up so we can kind of compare, and then we'll look at the transits also, because I think this might be really interesting. So if we put that chart first, and then we put the natal U.S. placements on the outside, see how what I was saying? It moves America's Mars to the ascendant. It moves America's Jupiter and Venus in conjunction to Mercury. So it's going to be like a America first type thing. It's going to be like, we got to do what we got to do to be able to protect our own.
That's probably going to come from the people, though, not from the government.
It could. Yeah, it could.
Which would be very revealing.
Yeah.
We might even begin to see a collective sense of, like, people who disagree on certain issues overcoming that to kind of, like, stand against certain mandates from the government. Because you're even starting to see even the media prepare for Kamala's ascension to the throne. I mean, like, calling out Biden for not really coming through with the percentage numbers, you know what I'm saying? And calling Biden out for what has actually come down. And personally, I have nothing against Biden. I see him as more like a litmus test, right? Whatever happens to him as a representation of a figure of this country, we gotta follow. So I think we're gonna see huge turning points.
There's some really big stuff happening, and you can look at it both ways. Just looking at some of the transits. I mean, we know that Saturn is turning retrograde, and it will come back into conjunction, or relative to conjunction. It actually stopped just short of America's moon, so it actually didn't hit our moon. It went retrograde. But I'm looking at, like, you know, America's moon conjunct Saturn.
26?
We're looking at Neptune conjunct the solar return moon, which is usually happening at the top part of the chart. It's weird because I feel like it goes from this Sag rising, which is like very like I don't give a fuck, to this Gemini rising, which is like, no, things are changing, narratives are changing, the way that we handle communication, short distance travel, documents, and just Mars, that's usually in our 7th house, returning to the ascendant, makes me feel like we're going to be at war. I don't like saying that.
No, I really feel that, though.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think it's going to be like we think, but I think it's going to at least start to see.
Well, and you may not see this really play out because you have to take into consideration also Mars will go retrograde several times through that. So in the fall, when Mars is turning retrograde, which is technically the Placidus ruler of the 11th, it's like trying to slow down or break down group initiatives, maybe, or some reworking of politics.
I mean, there's a lot of individual group dynamics from NRA to like so many like private groups forming with Saturn and Aqua to choral forces that there'd be so much to try and get through. But I'm mind blown because I completely forgot that this solar return has an opposite ascending.
Yeah.
So it's going to completely reverse or like give us a complete perspective of everything like you were saying before. And that just makes me even more. One thing that's really eyeing my attention is the Pluto in the 8th, trine to Taurus. So that's America's 2nd house. And in the house of other people's resources, you did allude to like things being exposed.
Yeah.
And it may have.
There's more coming though. We're still gonna, and I said this at the end of 2021. I was like, there's gonna be a Mercury retrograde in Capricorn happening in the new year. So whatever shit was going on literally at the start of 2022, we're gonna find it kind of boomeranging back. More talk about what's going on with taxes, more talk about the Fed and whether or not they're raising interest rates. We talked about that. They've done it.
Yeah.
You know,
it's complete now.
Let me do this, and I'll flip it around now so you can see U.S. chart and then the transits on the outside. So this is kind of interesting too because I was kind of eyeballing like Ceres in Cancer in the conjunction to America's Mercury, bringing up the theme of like mental health issues, you know, issues with women, mothers, depression, and whether or not they're taking like, you know, how everything that's gone on the last couple of years with our mental health seriously. It's the other way that I could look at it. Maybe
more, because a lot of the talk has been superficial, but maybe a more half-hearted attempt to act like it. Because it's really hard to really take that serious since it's based on like an illusion. It's not based on anything.
What do you think of like the solar return Venus being on the descendant? Does that in any way make you feel like there's the possibility through maybe just that placement or even the retrograde, that America is somehow dealing with open enemies
absolutely.
on their home turf.
Absolutely. I was thinking maybe even unlikely alliances.
Yeah, definitely. There can be unlikely alliances. Like, I think of, like, I mean, and it's funny, maybe it's just me, but, like, I think of, like, Gemini, and I'm like, oh, like, is it going to be a situation where there's, like, a reversal where, like, the U.S. is, like, in trouble and they, like, align with Britain?
Right.
Or, like, you know, the Queen's, like, come back home to mama? I mean, is there going to be something like that that's going to happen where, like, they align to try to, like, stabilize, like, currency in some way? I don't know.
I didn't even realize that Saturn and Jupiter are in its exaltation in America's chart. That's pretty interesting.
And then the solar return moon comes into conjunction with Neptune, and it opposes transit Neptune. Like, it's still very clear, like, we don't know jack shit about what's going on health-wise. We don't. And that there may be a turning point, especially in the fall, like Virgo season going into Libra season, where they're, like, ramping stuff up, being like, oh, there's this new, you know, virus that's out or something. I mean...
Monkey... Oh, I saw this one post, which I hope is not going to follow up, but they're saying that they want to kind of upgrade the... They upgraded the warning of monkeypox.
To level 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're telling people to wear masks because it's...
Isn't that like a sexually transmitted? Like,
I mean, I feel like they're really...
How are little boys getting it?
I feel like they're using the gay community as a scapegoat to be like, oh, well, you know... I mean, supposedly you get monkeypox either A, through having regular exposure to somebody who has, like, one of the boils or the blisters. Okay, through sex, sure, whatever. Or 2, actually having, like, fluid or something that, like, gets in it, but it's not a respiratory disease.
It's not a respiratory?
No, so they're telling people, oh yeah, like, stay away from gay saunas and gay gatherings, but it's like they're
really saying that?
Yeah, like they've said, like, they're tracing it back to saunas and stuff, and then also, like, June is Pride Month, so I'm just, like, sitting around going,
that's so
like,
weird.
Are they gonna say in a matter of 2 months that the numbers are up? I mean, they're also... The U.S. bought a ton of smallpox vaccines.
Didn't they do this with HIV?
Yeah.
As far
And
as,
guess
like,
who else
blaming
was
the gay
behind
community?
that?
Fauci.
Yeah.
The greatest.
Yeah.
The greatest.
And there's all that a lot of people have speculated for a long time that a lot of what happened in Africa with the AIDS pandemic was as a result of giving, you know, Vs. So it's just, and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying, like...
Just speculation. This is just what was said.
Throughout history, when Uranus was in Taurus, like, we have made terrible decisions when it comes to health.
We've had a financial crash. The Great Depression happened.
Well, Pluto was in Cancer and Uranus was in Taurus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was right before the Civil War.
And now it's the other way around. Pluto's in Capricorn, so, like, they want to crash it.
Pluto was in Cancer, now it's in Capricorn. You're right. Yes.
Yeah, so, like...
Orchestrated, yeah. It's controlled demolition.
Because they know that if they create so many variables, you know, like between food shortages and, like, other things, people are going to get desperate.
And here's the thing with rhetoric, because, like, the people at the top can tell you, we see the data, so this justifies our need to reset things. And this is where you got to learn to see through them. It's not up to me to say that what they're doing is good or bad. It's just up to us to see through the deceptive mechanics of what they're not telling us. And we have to remember, most of these people, like, you have to put yourself in. And when I say they, I'm talking about Neptune Pisces, Saturn Aqua, Pluto Capricorn. This is collective authority. These are the people at the top making rules for everybody.
I'm going to make a really bold prediction.
And before you do, maybe this might be in line with it, but I feel like most people in that position, they can't tell us a lot of what they want to tell us because they know people won't go to work.
People are going to flip out.
They're going to flip the fuck out.
Yeah.
Right.
So they've been getting everything in order. Yeah.
But, like, you know, that's their incentive, you know. And first of all, as bold as your prediction may be, your feelings about war, I feel that if it doesn't kick off, there's going to be some kind of, like, spark. I really do feel like there's going to be some kind of climax there. You're definitely on it.
Saturn is sitting on the cusp. So it's in the second house. The solar return Saturn's in the second. It's sitting on the cusp of the third.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you?
In the ninth. Oh.
So the
fact checking again?
fact checking again,
God,
but
yes.
also limitation and trying to dissolve or like trying to control certain narratives in the media. Something that's been coming up for me a lot in like meditation has been like there needs to be the return of like local radio.
Yeah.
You know, because if they shut stuff down or they choke internet or if they're trying to control major online sources, you have two options. One, you got to go out and talk to people, okay, which I think is good. Or B, like, what else are you going to do? Are we going to see, like, the return of, like, newspapers and, like, email chains? Are we going to see that people are going to starting local, like, radio stations so they can, like, broadcast? Because you can't, I mean, sure, you could shut that down, but it's harder to do that.
It's harder to do that, yeah.
Right? So if people are able to stay connected, like, this is, like, some, like, revolutionary war shit all over again.
That's Uranus and Taurus, yeah.
Where they were having to, like, ride in the middle of the night and, like, send messages like across state lines to be able to like talk about the revolution. So the revolution, we've said this, it won't be televised.
It will not. Mm-mm.
So it's going to be up to people and the lengths that they're willing to get the truth out. Right? I'm looking at Saturn behind the moon. I wonder what's going to happen because the moon's in a Gemini degree, right?
And then Saturn is in the 9th house of the solar return. So that could be restricting domestic travel.
Yeah, I think there's going to be this push to digitalize driver's licenses.
Ooh. Not the real ID?
No, I think they're going to push to like have like a digital ID and be like, okay, well, where's your ID? You know, or like trying to, I don't know. That's just, oh boy.
And once again, like we're expressing this, a lot of what we're saying doesn't have to even be bad. It's just more so like just, pushing out concepts there to give you an idea of what may happen, because Candace bringing up Saturn in that 3rd house is huge. Like that is very iconic. Pluto's in the 2nd. So like this is such a transformation of America's finances. I really do think that we're going to come into the next wave of collective mandates that everything that Saturn mandates, Uranus will revolutionize. And every time that they try and stop it, Uranus will just make a new one. It's like we banned your profile, Uranus will just make a new profile.
Yeah.
And so as long as you don't stop, you'll keep it going. And, take accountability. But I think it's crazy, and this is the twist, as crazy and as negative as this sounds, as dark as what we're saying it sounds, I think you're going to step into one of the most exhilarating periods of your life because you're having to actually deal with it. See, 2020, 2021, Jupiter was in Cap Aqua. A lot of this stuff was still in the hands of the elites. Now it's in Aries. So like now the shift is coming to us. And so as they reset this, and I don't want to say that what they're resetting is good or bad, it's just we're going to have a lot more direct control. And I really, really feel there's going to be so much more clapback to authority than there was before when things were still developing and we didn't know how it looked like.
What do you make of the just like a natal Saturn moon conjunction? Because you have that conjunction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So do you think that that's just like harsh emotional reality, or do you think that
Lots of suppression.
Yeah.
Lots of suppression.
So I'm just thinking about this, like at the end of this year,
especially in Aquarius,
we're going to see Saturn Uranus continue to square, but then
Yeah.
Saturn's going to go direct, and it's in the new year, it's going to come into conjunction with America's moon.
Right.
So it will be a suppression of moon in the 3rd house, being able to speak out, to be free thinking, free communication.
Moon in Aquarius is that free speech.
I also think it's, I mean, and that's what makes America great.
Right. In the 3rd.
Is that?
Right.
But as Saturn is sitting on the moon, it's going to also quincunx America's Mercury. So people are afraid to speak out. I think it's going to be a war on homelessness as well. You're going to see so many people that are going to be living in campers, living in cars, living on the street, and them, limiting, holding back the money and the resources for that as well.
On the low too, and maybe not necessarily.
When was the last time? So it was in the 90s when Saturn was, it was
in
like
Aquarius?
92, 93?
91, 92, 93.
When it was conjunct the moon.
Oh, 93. 93.
Trying to think if there was any like big housing things that went on there.
Which is a really good question because 93, Uranus and Neptune were still in Capricorn. So it's I think it was still too early to gauge that now versus now that it's like,
Yeah.
you know. But that's a really good question because it's very important to take in 91, 92, 93 to what's happening now. Because population is Aquarius, control is Saturn. This is population control. Every 30 years this happens. 60, so yeah, 1962, 1992, and now 2022, you know.
And just the fact that Saturn's going to come into conjunction with the eighth house lord, there's going to be so much more legislation about tax and exchange and digital exchange and digital assets and cars, and there's going to be probably carbon tax, environmental, Aquarius. But I have this feeling that it's also going to be about whether or not factual numbers about birth and death rates are actually being brought
numbers. Out. Yeah, that's huge. That's very huge. But then that to me feels like a Mars and Leo. It doesn't have to be specific to Mars and Leo, but to me, that would have to equate some kind of whistleblowing. Because I don't think that's going to, like, how would information like that even come out unless somebody exposed that?
I never really thought about America's Moon Palace conjunction, but that's like, you know, people exercising their right to pick up on things and go, no, this is wrong. I don't have to do this. I can do this differently. Perhaps maybe it's just going to be like this hard to hit also for like people who are small business owners or people who have online businesses or people who, you know, I mean, you got a lot of people now that aren't working in corporate buildings. They're not working office jobs. They've been working from home. So are they going to help people like pay for now living and working at home? Are they going to deny the right for people to like claim certain tax deductions? I think it's pretty gnarly in that department. You know, when I see like a client who has Saturn crossing their moon, I'm like, listen, you know, this is, they call it like in Vedic astrology, like the Sati Santi, the 7 years of Saturn. So you start feeling it when it's within like the semi-sextile, and then you feel it until it's exactly one sign away. Okay. So we're starting it. We've kind of already been in it since Saturn was in Capricorn, but now we're going to see that conjunction. So I think that it's going to bring up like the harsh reality of the fact that we really are limited in a sense of, you know, what we can share and how that's impacting people being like, wait, so then why are we here? Because this is supposed to be, you know, one of the most ideal places to live when it comes to like free speech.
And it's so interesting. We do see Pluto conjunct Pluto again at this return. So that's going to be huge. I think I really liked 2020's July 4th because the governor of California said no fireworks, and California was like, fuck you, boom, 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 boom. I thought that was truly American.
Yeah, was that Orange County?
Yeah, I think it was. It might have been, right.
Probably, yeah.
So I think this 2022 is going to be more of that, you know, the true American spirit versus the Pluto opposition that seeks to kill it, you know? And outside of that, I'm actually more excited than I'm worried because everything that we see is bad. Like, as a narrative, as a narrator, as a writer, we need to see these dark forces push us. Because, like, if Americans need, all over the world, people need that trigger. People need to see that, look, if you don't do anything, these people will keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that this is leading up to that trigger point. And
well, it's important that we're doing it now. I think about like the next couple of years when Saturn and Neptune enter into Aries, it's going to sit, Placidus-wise, it's going to sit on our IC. So it's, I mean, it
Neptune and Aries.
Yeah, Neptune and Saturn will sit on America's IC, which is, that could very well be the bottoming out.
No, seriously. And that's why I brought up in another talk that James O'Keefe is in Aries. And it's important to follow Project Veritas because when Neptune goes into Aries and Saturn goes into Aries, him representing Aries is going to be like the pioneers of this new type of media. You know, that's just more based on an individual and not like a collective, biased, bought out, you know, group that just spins stuff, you know. And it's going to restore that integrity of journalism. So we're on the verge of that. Like everything that what a time to be alive. This would be
I just think with that Mars retrograde, we're going to have in Gemini later this year, how it's going to be going retrograde through our 7th. So there's definitely going to be some kind of karmic stuff going on where like we're trying to figure out like who are our allies, like who has our back, like are we breaking bonds with certain, countries? And that's all happening in the 12th house for the solar return chart with Venus. So it's like there may be another, there's war in so-and-so country, we got to send money, and we're going to be like, what the fuck's going on? And then money is just going out the window, when in reality we're funding something because we're hoping somebody else is going to have our back. I think there's just going to be a lot of pieces on the chessboard that are moving around.
No, for real. But there's still that Neptunian fog that no one knows what's really happening.
The moon conjunct Neptune, the natal Neptune, and in opposition to the solar return Neptune is a lot of people disassociating.
Oh, Neptune opposition too.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's actually very deep. So we've already completed that opposition, and it's a lot of desensitization, disillusionment, and once again, I think the overall collective feeling is that people all over the world are feeling scammed.
Yeah.
The promise is not what really came through. And even people in the government can spin that and demonize America for that. But I think as a turning point, we're going to start to see, I really feel 2020 moving forward was like that rise of the dark. I think we're going to start to see rise of the light. You know what I mean? Like we're going to start to see blowback, pushback, and it may not be powerful at first, but it's going to be the seed that will grow very powerfully by Uranus and Gemini.
Yeah. Can't wait for Uranus to get a Taurus.
Because you have to understand, like, there are people, like, that we are going to reach an inevitable point where people are going to fight for what they believe in.
Yeah.
Like, the whole notion that the majority of people are going to just bow down and, like, accept what's happening, that's not going to happen. Like, there is going to be a breaking point. And this is going to be between people who don't even, like, all the people who disagreed with each other 2020, they're all going to agree that they're going to fight against whatever may kind of come up. I can see people squashing their differences and not even agreeing on how they do it, but agreeing on some kind of common theme.
I'm hoping that's the case. I still think that things really start to kind of clear up more so like next summer.
Yeah.
That's how I've kind of seen it.
2023 to me is like the reset.
Yeah. Well, let us know. What do you guys think? What are you anticipating for the year ahead? What do you make of the transits or the charts? What are you eating for 4th of July?
Right. I'm gonna eat a foot-long hot dog. I'm gonna cut out
We're going to have a mukbang now. Go get a bunch of them.
That's what's up.
Well, thank you guys for your support. Please don't forget to comment, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, consider joining our memberships. You make it possible for us to keep doing what we're doing. And have a very happy 4th of July.
Thank you for joining level 3, by the way.